March 1st, 1943. Willow Run Township, Michigan. The pre-dawn sky is the color of steel, and the wind carries the bite of late winter. Inside Ford Motor Company's colossal Willow Run plant, the largest single-roof factory in the world, lights hum to life one row at a time, illuminating a vast metal landscape where night shift workers are just beginning to hand the floor over to the day crew. The building is so large that workers joke the curvature of the earth can be seen inside it, but no one's joking this morning. Not today. A whistle snaps through the air. Machinery groans awake. Conveyor belts shudder, then glide forward with the slow, deliberate rhythm of a giant taking its first breath. And high above the floor, on a narrow mezzanine walkway, Plant Superintendent Charles E. Sorensen, cast iron Charlie, leans over the railing with a clipboard in one hand and a stopwatch in the other. His jaw is set, his eyes locked on the first major station of the B-24 Liberator assembly line. He's looking for one number. 63 minutes. Not a minute more. Because if the numbers don't add up today, the entire promise Henry Ford made to Washington will collapse under its own weight. Below him, the first wave of workers floods the stations. Teenagers who lied about their age, mothers who've left their children with neighbors, retired machinists who came back because someone has to do the damn job. Many have never touched an aircraft part before this year. None have ever built a bomber. Yet all of them carry the weight of a single demand from the U.S. Army Air Forces: produce a B-24 every hour. Most aviation experts called it ridiculous, impossible, a fantasy dreamt up by people who'd never held a rivet gun. The B-24 is a 4-engine, 56,000-pound heavy bomber, one of the most complex aircraft ever built. Hand-assembled at traditional plants, it normally takes over 50,000 labor hours to complete a single plane. And now, Ford was claiming they could do it faster than some factories could build a car. Inside the plant, the shift begins with a low tremor, riveting hammers clattering like overlapping bursts of hail. Metal sheets slam into place, welding torches spit blue flame. Workers shout measurements over the roar of machines designed for automotive speed, now re-engineered to bend to the will of aviation precision. At Station 12, a young woman named Margaret Maggie Ellison, her hair pinned up under thick canvas headgear, steadies a pneumatic riveter against the aluminum skin of a center fuselage section. The tool bucks violently in her hands. A man across from her, Eddie Farnsworth, a former farmhand from Ohio, holds the bucking bar behind the panel, bracing it with both arms as the rivet drives home. Neither speaks. There's no time for it. The line is moving. At Station 22, technicians haul one of the Pratt Whitney R-1830 engines onto a cradle mount. The engine is heavy, unwieldy, and stubborn. Two men push. AC, third, guides the nose. A fourth checks the torque specs on a clipboard smudged with oil and pencil lead. Sorensen watches everything through wire-rimmed glasses. Every movement, every hesitation, every unnecessary step. He's spent months redesigning the workflow, turning a bomber into a sequence of tasks that anyone could learn, even if they'd never seen the inside of a cockpit. He's torn apart the B-24's original blueprints and reorganized them into something the assembly line can digest. But today is the first real test. A loudspeaker crackles above the noise. All stations, keep the line clear. Fuselage sections approaching wing, join 1. Repeat, wing, join 1. Across the floor, Maggie wipes her gloves on her coveralls and steps back. The conveyor brings the massive central fuselage forward, its unfinished structure gleaming under harsh overhead lights as if it's being revealed on stage. The workers around her shift into the practiced choreography they've spent weeks refining. Wing join 1. The moment where the bomber begins to look like a bomber. High-tension bolts, steel jigs, 4 cranes working in synchronized arcs like mechanical ballet dancers. The left and right wing assemblies are guided into position until metal kisses, metal with a hollow clunk that echoes through the rafters. Dozens of hands move instantly, checking alignment pins, tightening clamps, locking joints into place. Sorensen clicks the stopwatch. Somewhere deep in the plant, a whistle blows. An hour has passed since the shift began. He checks the fuselage's position. He checks the alignment chart. He checks the clock again. 63 minutes, on the dot. He exhales. But this is only 1 hour, one plane, one attempt. To meet the Army's demand, they'll have to hit that number every hour, every shift, every day, through breakdowns, shortages, mistakes, exhaustion, and fear. And outside these walls, war is burning a path across continents. Every B-24 that fails to roll off this line on time means crews overseas fly with one less aircraft protecting them. Sorensen taps his clipboard. Again, he mutters. Do it again. Because Willow Run is not merely building airplanes. It's building a machine that builds airplanes. And it has only just begun. March 18th, 1943. Willow Run, Michigan. It's barely past midnight. But inside the Ford bomber plant, the concept of time has dissolved into the constant, grinding rhythm of production. Day shift, night shift, swing shift, names only. Willow Run runs on a different clock now, the clock of war. Steam rises from workers' breath as they hurry across catwalks suspended above the floor. The temperature is always shifting here. Cold near the giant cargo doors, blistering hot near the welding bays. But no one slows down. They can't. The line doesn't stop. The line can't stop. At Station 37, the oxygen system crew leaps into motion as a bare metal B-24 crawls toward them on its conveyor. Pads like a massive, skeletal animal waiting to come alive. Thin copper tubing rattles in crates. Technicians in Ford blue coveralls uncoil lines with gloved hands, threading them through the fuselage ribs that will soon become the bomber's life arteries at altitude. A supervisor named Frank DeLuca, a compact man with a mustache dusted in aluminum flakes, walks the catwalk above them with a flashlight. He sweeps the beam along each connection point. Inspect. Approve. Move on. Over and over. Below him, someone shouts, "Line's clear. Bring the starboard nacelle in." A crane swivels slowly, carrying a massive nacelle toward the right wing spar. The chain clinks rhythmically, heavy, deliberate, the sound of 1,000 hours of engineering converging on a single moment. Ground crews guide it into place with practiced hand signals, none needing to hear one another over the roar of machinery. They don't have to. Their movements are mechanical instinct now. Across the plant, sparks flash like tiny white fireworks as welders seal structural beams. The smell of hot metal and hydraulic oil clings to the air, thick enough to taste. And through it all, the clock keeps ticking. 63 minutes. 63 minutes. Another 63 minutes. Every hour must produce one bomber. Every hour must justify the gamble Ford made when it designed this enormous experiment of steel and speed. Yet the people who keep this miracle moving aren't the engineers or executives. They're the workers on the line. At Station 52, Maggie Ellison is back at her post. Her shoulders ache. Her gloves are stiff with dried aluminum dust. She hasn't taken a full break in 3 hours. She pushes a stray hair back under her headgear and steadies her riveter against the inside wall of the bomb bay. Eddie, working across from her again, gives a small nod. Ready. She triggers the tool. The air erupts in a snarling vibration. Even through earplugs, she feels it shaking her bones. The rivet snaps into place with a firm metallic thunk. One down. Hundreds more to go. Next to them, a group of newcomers, 3 women from a farm in Indiana, watch with nervous eyes. It's their first week. They're still learning how to handle the machinery, still learning that at Willow Run, mistakes don't just cost money, they cost time. A trainer named Louise Harland, tall and broad-shouldered, leans in beside them. "Don't be afraid of the tools," she tells them, placing a riveter into one girl's hands. "You keep your stance wide, brace your elbows, and let the machine do the talking. It's loud, not mean." She isn't wrong. Tools here are like living things. Wild at first, but capable of precision if handled correctly. Far across the factory, Sorensen walks with 2 Army Air Forces inspectors in tow. They're here to monitor progress, to see if Ford's promise is still holding. They stop at Wing Join 3, where a newly attached wing has failed to sit flush against the fuselage, just a few millimeters off. But in aircraft manufacturing, a few millimeters might as well be a canyon. An inspector frowns. This'll slow the line. Sorensen doesn't break stride. "We'll fix it," he says. "Keep the line moving." He waves over a team of jig specialists. They hurry forward with precision tools, checking alignment bolts and hydraulic clamps. Within minutes, the wing settles into perfect position, locked into place like it had always belonged there. The inspector's frown softens. The stopwatch continues. Meanwhile, outside the factory walls, trains scream into the depot every hour, hauling in crates of aluminum, engines, tires, radios, everything the plant consumes like a starving machine. Willow Run devours material faster than most American cities consume food, and yet, somehow, the workers keep pace. At 3:07 a.m., a roar echoes from the back of the building as a completed B-24 rolls toward the final hangar, its bare metal skin gleaming under the shifting factory lights. Workers who've been awake too long, who've missed dinners and weekends and birthdays, pause to watch it pass. Some don't say anything. Some smile faintly. Some place a hand on the fuselage as it rolls by, a quiet gesture of connection to something much larger than themselves. The bomber will be tested at dawn. If it passes, it'll be flown directly to a training base by evening. If it fails, it'll be hauled back inside to be rebuilt, modified, perfected. The line doesn't cheer. The line doesn't celebrate. It simply keeps moving. Because another unfinished fuselage is already approaching Station 1. Another hour is ticking down. Another Liberator is waiting to be born. April the 28th, 1943. Willow Run, Michigan. Dawn bleeds through the high windows of the Ford bomber plant, casting long, thin beams across rows of half-finished B-24s. The night shift is winding down, but the workers don't slow. Momentum is sacred here. If one person eases up, the line feels it. At Station 68, the armament crew threads belts of .50 caliber ammunition into the tail turret, while the gun assembly team checks the swivel mounts with slow, precise motions. The twin Brownings sit in the glass dome like watchful eyes, still and mute for now. A crew chief named Ray Kessler, gray at the temples and calm even in chaos, runs his hand along the interior of the turret ring. He feels for burrs, catches none, nods in satisfaction. "Good," he mutters. "Next one." He doesn't look at the clock. He doesn't have to. He can feel the pace in his bones. Across the floor, the radio crew installs the SCR-274N communication set. Tangle-like bundles of wires hang from open panels. A young technician, barely 18, traces each cable from transmitter to antenna mount, learning the logic of the machine by touch. Above them, the loudspeaker cracks alive. Final assembly on Bay 4, rollout commencing. Heads turn. Hands pause. Even in a plant, where miracles happen by the hour, rollout is special. The bomber emerging from Bay 4 is fully skinned, fully armed, polished with inspection chalk and pencil marks like surgeons' notes. Workers move aside as the tug pushes the aircraft toward the massive doors at the far end of the plant. Sunlight floods over the silver fuselage as the doors part. The bomber's tail number glows briefly, catching the morning light. This one is ready. Inside, Maggie stands beside Eddie near their workbench. They're coated in a sheen of sweat, dust, and fatigue. But as the bomber passes, they straighten. Eddie taps Maggie on the shoulder and nods toward it. She allows herself a small, proud smile. None of the workers know where the bomber will go. North Africa, Italy, the Pacific. All they know is that crews somewhere in the world will trust their lives to the thousands of hands inside Willow Run. A Ford photographer snaps a picture, catching the bomber just as it exits into the open air. A symbol of speed, scale, and industrial audacity that the world has never seen before. Sorensen stands near the doorway, his coat pulled tight against the morning chill. He watches silently as flight crews step inside the bomber for its test run at Cleveland Army Airfield. He doesn't wave, he doesn't speak, he simply checks the time. Another bomber leaves the line 67 minutes after the last. Not good enough, but close. He turns, walks back into the belly of the plant, and disappears into the endless rows of workstations. He doesn't need to call attention to the workers. They're already pushing themselves harder than any speech could demand. Hours later, a mechanic named Joe Carr, handling the final landing gear inspection for another B-24, wipes his hands on a rag and glances toward the clock tower mounted over the central walkway. The clock clicks. The minute hand jumps. A whistle blasts. A second bomber begins rolling toward daylight. All around the plant, a wave of motion continues. Riveters bending into position, cranes swinging overhead, foremen shouting instructions over the din. Workers duck beneath wings, climb fuselage ladders, slide into narrow compartments to fit oxygen tanks and wiring. The line no longer feels experimental. It feels inevitable. Ford's engineers called Willow Run the Grand Canyon of industry for its sheer scale, but the workers give it a different name. The line that never sleeps. By early summer, the production tempo tightens again, and again, and again, until one morning, after months of sweat, failures, improvisations, and relentless repetition, the whistle blows at 9:02 a.m. A bomber rolls out. The next emerges at 10:05 a.m., another at 11:07 a.m., 12:10 p.m., 1:12 p.m., each one following the rhythm of an enormous metallic heartbeat. At 2:13 p.m., Sorensen stands with a row of supervisors, clicking his stopwatch with shaking fingers. The next bomber's nose appears. The tug pulls it forward. 63 minutes. No one cheers. No one shouts. Most of the workers don't even know the milestone has been reached. They're already focused on the next fuselage entering Station 1. The line continues without a ripple. But Sorensen knows. He nods once, a small, almost imperceptible gesture. Then he resets the stopwatch. Because one success means nothing if it can't be repeated. Day after day, week after week, Willow Run proves it can. A B-24 every hour. Thousands by war's end. An industrial feat the world had never seen and never would again. And each aircraft carries the fingerprints, sweat, and quiet determination of the Americans who willed the impossible into reality.